What's going on, everyone? And thank you for tuning in to yet another exciting episode of Fantasy Haus Live. This week, as per usual, we got the weekly review, the power rankings, and the preview of the next week coming up. And then afterwards, we'll probably do some gaming. But yeah, it was a pretty exciting week. And so yeah, without too much further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? And let's start with the reviews. Where is it? All right. So here is how week 5 shaked out. Turn this down just a hair. So we had in our... Ooh, my camera's a little low, but that's just because I adjusted my chair. Whatever, fuck it. We're going without it. Or we'll go without adjusting it. Anyways, so in our first game of the week, we had Team Nuge picking up the win and overtaking the number 1 overall in the league top dog, Chicago Deviants, 153-80. It was actually almost kind of a blowout. And considering the season that Nuge had last year, this is a hell of a turnaround, so you love to see it. In our second matchup of the week, we had CD's Nuts taking on Destino. And Destino picking up that win and a similar stat line. Well, kind of similar. A similar victory stat line at 157-107. In our third matchup of the week, we had Debo's Nuts getting the... Debo's Nuts, who is our number 2 overall top dog in the league, getting the win over Bob's Burgers. In our fourth matchup of the week, we had BJJ's picking up the win over Lame Tanks. The previous matchup, Debo's Nuts versus Bob's Burgers. Debo's Nuts won 125-79, while BJJ's picked up the win over Lame Tanks, 142-121 in a reasonably close game. And Champ Cheese, in our last game of the week, picked up the victory, 156-128 over Team Breaky. But, okay, now, it's not enough for me to just tell you it. Now let's actually see and dive into it and see how these games broke down. Let's take a look at Team Nugent, and as always, let's break it down with Team Nugent and the Deviants. I'll switch to the box score here. Scroll down. Okay, hopefully the stupid fancy chat box doesn't get annoying. But we'll see. Okay. Oh, nice. 1 second. My display window is not set up correctly. Now it is. Okay. So, starting off as per usual with our quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, who has been having a phenomenal season, put up actually kind of a lower stat line this week. Only was able to get 16 points, but they were able to get the win over Cincinnati. Tom Brady was able to pick up 23 points in the kind of a narrow win over Atlanta, but he was able to get 23 points in that win. Next up in the running backs, we had Clyde Edwards-Helaire picking up only 6.5 in the very narrow win over Vegas, while Christian McCaffrey was able to pick up 23 in the loss to San Francisco. In the other next battle of the running backs, we had Damian Harris, who only picked up 2.2. Did I hear he got injured? Harris is expected to meet Cicero date and possibly more, so he did get injured. Okay. So he did get injured last week, and he was only able to put up 2.2 before that time. Breece Hall, on the other hand, went off and had a game against Miami. Speaking of which, all of the Jets just had a game against Miami, in which case he was able to drop 27 in that dub. Moving into the wide receivers, we had Jamar Chase able to get 12 points in that, respectable 12 points that is, in the loss to Baltimore. It's a bit of a down year. I mean, we've said this pretty much week in and week out here that Cincinnati's having a down year right now, which is unfortunate because I do have Jamar Chase in another league, but hey, otherwise. Anyways, CeeDee Lamb continuing to put up a pretty respectable 10 points with, given the current circumstances of that Dallas team. And I will say Cooper Rush has been playing quite phenomenal. I'm going to turn this down so hopefully I'm not too loud. Okay, let's see. Moving into the next battle, the wide receivers, we had Marquise Brown able to get 21 points in the loss to Philly, while T. Higgins was unfortunately put up a goose egg. Did he just not target it, or what happened? Higgins only played 10 snaps before he re-injured his ankle, so both of these teams actually suffered from injuries during this week a little bit here. Oof. Darren Waller dropping another goose egg. That's definitely got to hurt too, because I have him in another league too, and he did not suit back up. They haven't said anything. Let's see. Darren Walford suffered a hamstring injury. Hate to see it, but also was able to unfortunately put up a goose egg. Across the way, you have the outstanding Mark Andrews, able to put up 22, who has been one of Lamar's consistent and favorite targets this year. Well, I suppose that just goes with any tight end. But in the battle of the flex positions, we have Miles Sanders throwing up 8.4, while his teammate in Philly, A.J. Brown, throwing up 6.2 in the win over Arizona. So, kind of similar stat line. Moving into the defenses, we had the Rams able to get 6 points, even though they had a loss against Dallas. While conveniently enough on the opposite side of that ball, we had Dallas able to pick up 22 points. Sheesh. You know what's funny? I picked up this defense for Dallas, and wow, the Dallas defense went off. 6 straight road wins, 22 points with 1 TD, interception, fumble recovery. 2 fumble recoveries, 5 sacks. My lord. And then in the battle of the kickers, Tyler Bass able to get 7, respectable. And Nick Folk able to throw up 18, which is huge for a kicker. So huge week for Nuge. He even had Carson Wentz on his bench. But, alright. Let's move on, shall we? That's impressive. Nuge has been turning this team around. Good for him, bro. Okay, let's switch it. Let me minimize that. Collapse that. Okay, so in our next matchup, we're going to do CD's Nuts versus Destino. Anyways, so in this matchup, boop. Gotta throw that back on. Okay. Starting off with our QB1s. Actually, it's just the QBs. We don't even have a QB2. Anyways, Russell Wilson only was able to get 11 points in yet another depressing loss. This one against Indianapolis. The Denver experiment for Russell Wilson has not worked out at all, and I think that is completely evident. Patrick Mahomes on the other side here, continuing to have an awesome season, 33 points in the big-time win over Vegas, and in which case they came from behind. In the battle of the RB1s, we got Joe Mixon dropping 11 in the loss to Baltimore, while Nick Chubb is able to get 25 in that loss to the Chargers. In the next matchup, we had Dameon Pierce, the rookie sensation from Houston, continuing to hustle and bustle, getting 20 points in that win over Jacksonville, while Josh Jacobs just had himself a day, dropping 30 points in the narrow loss to KC. There's not too many weapons left in Las Vegas. It looks like Tay caught himself a case with running into that camera dude. Waller's injured. Oof. So much for that. What was it supposed to be I feel like they're supposed to be pegged to be a top 10 offense in the league, and it has not panned out well. Moving on into the wide receivers. Cooper Kupp continuing to do Cooper Kupp things. dropping 25 points in the surprising loss, in my opinion, to Dallas. While DK Metcalf able to get 17 in an unfortunate losing effort to New Orleans, but still, DK able to produce with Geno, having themselves a sneaky good season. Let's see, Mike Evans was able to get 12 points in that pretty big win over Atlanta, while Adam Thielen was only able to muster up 6 in the win over Chicago. So, unfortunate stat line for Thielen, but I mean, ever since the arrival of Justin Jefferson, he's been kind of, I mean, obviously he's the wide receiver too, but he's definitely had a lot more lower of a ceiling this year, which, you know, obviously speaking. Moving into the tight ends, Tyler Conklin throwing up a goose egg. Did he get injured? Nope, he's healthy. Failed to catch his only target. Got you. Okay. Well, that's definitely not going to hurt. Especially when you're going against Travis Kelce, who's dropping 33 points. Just oof. Easily been Mahomes' favorite target. I think he had 4 teddies. Oof. Moving into the flex position, Ramondre Stevenson, who has come out of that backfield, as you know, he's definitely was a sleeper pick. Well, I mean, a lot of those players in that backfield have gone down with injury, so he's the last man standing, and he's killing it right now. So he's got let's see, he's got 19 points in the win over Detroit. All right. Where were we? Oh, yeah. We were in the flex positions. Because Ramondre Stevenson, like I said, he's having a good season. A lot of those backs in New England have gone down, so he's kind of that last man standing. But I would say that last man standing, he's kind of making good on his opportunities there. Like I said, dropping 19 points in that win over Detroit. While on the opposite side here, we had Brandon Ayuk, only able to get about 8 points in that win over Carolina. Yo, what's good, News Attack? What's good, my brother? Much love. Classic. Such a good song. What a classic. Good to see you, Bursky. Good to see you. I'm doing good. I love the Jackass show. It's so funny. I know, right? So fucking good. It's a classic. MTV classic for sure. All right. Where were we? We had... Oh, yeah. We were into the defenses now with... Let's see. The Vikings only able to get 6 points in the win over Chicago, while the Chargers were only able to... The Chargers actually had a negative points this week in the win over Cleveland. I picked up the Vikings this week in another league. Was hoping to get more. Unfortunate. And moving into the kickers, we had Young Ho Koo getting a goose egg. Why did you get a goose egg? Did you just not kick anything? 1 for 1 on extra points. And that was it. He missed his only opportunity. That's unfortunate. Ooh, excuse me. We're on the opposite side. Matt Amendola, who was, I believe, cut from the Kansas City and then signed by Arizona. But it looks like he's wearing a Jets jersey. Oh, that's throwing me for a whirl. But either way, was able to get 4 points in the loss to Philadelphia. All right, oh, wrong button. Do that. Okay, let's move into number 3, which is Bob's Burgers and Debo's Nuts. Break it down. All right, here we go. Into the quarterbacks. Justin Herbert, able to get a respectable 16 points, 60.7 points in that win over Cleveland, while Derek Carr able to get 20 points in that narrow loss to KC. In the start of the running backs, we had Najee Harris only able to get 6 points in that blowout loss to Buffalo. Austin Eckler continuing to have an amazing season for the Chargers, picking up 35 in the win over Cleveland. In the battle of RB2s, we had Jamal Williams, who was having an amazing start to the season, starting to kind of seem to plateau a little bit here, but that, also might be just because, it is Detroit. Even though they are a high-scoring offense, they are also, I think they're also one of the offenses that turn over the ball most. I think that was the stat. I can't remember. I might be misremembering what was said on Sunday, but either way, he was only able to get 5.6 points in that loss to New England, while James Robinson also able to only get about 5.9 points in that loss to Houston. I think everyone's expecting Jacksonville to, kind of this be a little bit of a show-out game so that they're, something to be actually considered seriously, and unfortunately they lost to Houston, so, well, there you have it. In the battle of the wide receivers, Scary Terry able to get 12 points in the loss to Tennessee, while Deebo Samuel able to get 11 in the win over Carolina. Into the wide receiver 2 category, Christian Kirk only able to muster up 2.1 in that loss to Houston, while Ty Freak able to get a respectable 13 points in the loss to the Jets. If I remember, since he was healthy, but I could have sworn I saw a news outlet say that this man was in a walking boot after the game. But I mean, literally says healthy, so shit. Can't say anything about it. 42 points. That's absurd. Anyways. Okay. Moving into the tight ends, we had TJ Hawkinson only able to get 1.6 points in that very unfortunate blowout loss to New England. But I mean, 1.6 when the final stat line was 0 and 29 makes sense. Looking across the way, Hayden Hurst, who actually had himself a good game, able to get 17 points in that loss to Baltimore. Moving into the flex position, Chris Olave, who the rookie sensation for the Saints, was able to get 15.4. I believe he actually ended up getting a concussion. Yeah, he might be out for a little bit. Saints was number 1 wide receiver week 5. If Olave is cleared, so he might be cleared to return to the field. Just obviously, concussion protocol. And on the opposite side, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was having a phenomenal season in general, just kind of ran into a brick wall here with New England, only able to get 5.8 points. Moving into the defenses, the Saints only able to get 3 points in that win over Seattle, while on the opposite side, the Niners able to get 15 in that big win over Carolina. And lastly, in the battle of the kickers, Justin Tucker continues to be that man, dropping 16 points in the big win over Cincinnati, while Greg Joseph only able to get a single point in the win over Chicago. Okay, in the next matchup, we have the BJJs and the Lame Tanks, in which case the BJJs was able to sneak out the win. Switch it to this. All right. Let me switch positione. A little Nadal action. But I guess I can talk and do this at the same time. So Josh Allen able to throw up 39 big ones in that big win over Pittsburgh, while Kirk Cousins, who's surprisingly actually having a good season as well, able to get 25 points in the win over Chicago. Devin Singletary only able to muster up about 5.6 in that big win over Pittsburgh. While on the opposite side, King Henry able to pick up 27 in the win over Washington. Then J.K. Dobbins in that RB2 spot able to only get 4.4, while in that win over Cincinnati, while Alvin Kamara finally awakening and getting 27 points in that win over Washington. In that big win over Washington, despite the fact it's been a bit of a rough season for the Saints here. Moving into the wide receivers, DJ Moore able to get 10 points in that loss to San Fran, while Michael Pittman Jr. also able to get 10 points in their win over Denver, so pretty even there. Tyler Lockett able to get 27 in that losing effort to New Orleans. Jesus, words are hard. While Cortland Sutton able to get 12 points in that depressing losing game to Indy, in which case the home fans were leaving in OT when they had a chance to win it. Crazy. In the tight ends, we had George Kittle able to get 7 points, while Gerald Everett was only able to get 1 in the win over Cleveland. So pretty low performance this week out of Everett. In the battle of the flexes, Amari Cooper showing that he can actually produce there in Cleveland with Jacoby under center, picking up 20 points, while Mike Williams for the Chargers continuing to have a pretty steady season, getting 23 points in that win over Cleveland. In the defenses here, we had Green Bay only able to get 3 points in that surprise loss to the Giants in London, while the Broncos in the loss to Indy was able to get 13 points, which doesn't seem fair to me, but hey, I'm biased as a Packer fan. And lastly, in the battle of the kickers, Matt Gay only able to get 3 points in the losing effort to Dallas, while the Cincy sensation, Evan McPherson, only able to get 6 points in that losing effort to Baltimore. All right. And in our last but most certainly not least, we got Champ Cheese taking on Team Breaky. And this was another reasonably close effort here. But we were able to squeak out the win, 156 to 128. All right. In the battle of the quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts continues to have an amazing season, dropping 30 points, while Kyler Murray was only able to get 18 in that loss to Philly. I will say Philly was taking on. They were going against Arizona. Never mind. Moving on into the running backs, Cam Akers unfortunately only able to get 3 points in that losing effort to Dallas, while Delvin Cook had himself a day, slightly able to get 26 points in that big win over Chicago. Aaron Jones was able to get 10 points in that loss to the Giants, while on the opposite side of the field, and conveniently on the opposite side of the ball on that one, in that same game, Saquon was able to get 19 in that win over Green Bay. In the wide receivers, Stephon Diggs was able to continue to have a very solid season this year. 24 points out of him in that big win over Pittsburgh, while Justin Jefferson went off against division rival in the Bears, getting 30 points in that win. Into the wide receiver 2 spot, Devonta Adams getting 27 points despite losing and picking up a misdemeanor assault charge all in the same game. While on the opposite side of the field, Curtis Samuel, 12 points and 12 points in the loss. In the tight ends, in the matchup of the tight ends, Pat Freiermuth able to get 3.2 in the loss to Buffalo, while Tyler Higbee able to muster up 11 and really starting to build up that trust and repertoire with Stafford there. In the flex spot, we had Allen Robinson getting 4.2 points once again in that losing effort to Dallas, while Jeff Wilson was able to muster up 20 points in that closer than it should have been game, or in that thromping of Carolina. I was looking at the next game. In the battle of the defenses, we had Buffalo defense go off for 10 points in that win over Pittsburgh, while the Buccaneers defense was only able to get 8 points in that narrowly won effort, I'll say, over Atlanta. In the battle of the kickers, good back rack, we had Daniel Carlson, who was actually having himself a day going against KC, able to get 16, while Brandon McManus in what was field goal city for that Indianapolis and Denver game was able to get 10. I think that concludes them all for that. Okay. Sweet. All right, then let's prep for the good old power rankings. Okay, there we go. All right, let's do it. So this week, and a new number 1 overall top dog in the league, Team Nuge. That's my best. That's my best Bruce Buffer without, screaming and actually getting in trouble. But for real though, there are now no more. Everyone has a loss now. No more undefeated teams, and there is even a new champ currently. I should just say new top dog. In which case, Nuge was able to make the jump from that 3 spot over the Deviants. While Debo's Nuts still staying in that number 2 spot. Deviants moving down to the 3 spot. Team Nuge, I forgot that. Nuge has a record of 4-1. Debo's Nuts has a record of 3-2, and Chicago Deviants has a record of 4-1. Remaining in that 4 spot is Destino with a record of 3-2. Moving on up into the 5th spot is the BJJs with also a record of 3-2. In the 6th spot is Champ Cheese, thank you, with a win and also a 2-3 record. Falling into the 7th place is CD's Nuts with a record of 2-3. Continuing their fall from grace here is Bob's Burgers, also with a record of 2-3. And a new addition to the dumpster fires, Team Breaky, sitting at number 9 currently with a record of 1-4. And while there was absolutely no change in the who's bringing up the rear here, it is Lame Tanks with a record of 1-4. Okay. Now this brings us to our last part. The preview. Alright, so as per usual, we start off with our game of the week, in which case we've got the number 1 overall top dog taking on the number 5th ranked BJJs. In matchup number 2, we got the number 2 overall top dog, Debo's Nuts, taking on Destino. In our 3rd matchup of the week, we have CD's Nuts taking on Chicago Deviants, our 3rd overall top dog. In matchup number 4, we have Champ Cheese in that 6th spot, taking on the 10th and last place ranked Lame Tanks. And lastly, we have a pretty low we have a battle of the low cards here, in which it's the 8th seeded Bob's Burgers versus the 9th seeded Team Breaky. Now, let's take a quick little look at how these shall shake up. Starting with Nuge and BJJ's. Switch to that. Alright. Alright, so we have Tom Brady and the Bucks going against Pitt versus Kirk Cousins and Minnesota going against Miami. Ooh. Interesting. Kirk Cousins having himself a good year. Miami just lost to the Jets. Tom Brady, mediocre year. I think he's actually been doing pretty decent, honestly. But going against Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh just got lit up by Josh Allen. Which defense is worse right now, Pittsburgh or Miami? I think I might roll with Kirk Cousins on this one, just because Miami just lost to the Jets. And Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh is a different team, so we'll see. It's not Atlanta, so we'll see what happens for Brady. In the battle of the running backs, we got Carolina versus the Rams and Kamara versus Cincy. If the Rams weren't the defending champions, I'd probably lean McCaffrey, but since they are, McCaffrey, I feel like, is just coming back from injury. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I know the Rams defense is going to be good because, they're defending Super Bowl champs, but I don't know. That Carolina offense has been pretty much fucking abysmal. And Cincinnati has not been the same, so I think we'll have to roll with Kamara on this one. Moving into the running backs, we got Breece Hall and the Jets going against Green Bay versus Raheem Mostert and Miami going against Minnesota. I gotta say, Breece Hall and the Jets, as a Green Bay fan, we cannot stop the run, which, does not bode well. Let's see. Oh, battle of the wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb and Dallas going against Philly versus Pittman Jr. and Indy going against Jacksonville. Oof. Ironically, because of how good Philly's defense has been playing recently, I think I'm actually going to pick Pittman Jr. But it wouldn't surprise me if I'm wrong on that one. Next matchup, we got Jacoby Myers in New England going against Cleveland versus Cortland Sutton in Denver going against the Chargers. Probably have to go Jacoby Myers on this one. Cortland Sutton is just a little too bit risky of a play, even though he is the number one over there in Denver. But it's just like, I feel like Denver has enough issues trying to close out games. And that tight end. Oh, wait. I didn't already do this, right? Okay, tweak myself out for a second. Cool. Okay. In the tight end spot, we had Mark Andrews in Baltimore going against the Giants versus Gerald Everett and the Chargers going against Denver. Just purely based on Mark Andrews being one of the best tight ends in the league and his volume share that he seems to be getting at the moment, we're going to go with Andrews. In the flex spot, we got AJ Brown and Philly going against Dallas versus Mike Williams and the Chargers going against Denver. Ooh. Interesting. Okay. I think in the case of AJ Brown versus Mike Williams, probably go AJ Brown. Even though I know Mike Williams will produce, but actually, you know, I take that back. Mike Williams, I think, will have the better stat line against Denver because Denver's defense is not doing pretty much anything. Speaking of defenses, we got the Cowboys and Dallas going against Philly versus the Broncos going against the Chargers. Well, the Cowboys are one of the highest turnover teams in the league. Broncos have been, I think I'll roll with the Cowboys on this one, but I would fully expect to be wrong. Excuse me. In the kickers, we got Nick Folk and the Pats taking on Cleveland versus Evan McPherson and Cincy going against New Orleans. I think these two will put up a similar stat line. I think there's going to be a bunch of field goals. But I think that McPherson will have the higher stat line. Okay, now we got, let's see, Debo's Nuts versus Destino. Alright, so we got Mahomes and KC going against Buffalo. That's going to be a tough matchup versus Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville going against Indy. Oof. Part of me wants to go Trevor Lawrence because it's Indy, but they could also flop it like they did against Houston. But Buffalo's defense is damn good. Screw it. We'll probably look stupid, but we're going to take Trevor Lawrence to produce more points this week. Running backs, we got, let's see, Nick Chubb in Cleveland going against New England versus Austin Eckler, and the Chargers going against Denver. Both these guys are having a phenomenal year. Nick Chubb has been feasting. Same thing with Eckler. New England's defense is a bit better, though. But I think Chubb is still going to have a good year, or good game. Let's see. Next up, we had J.D. McKissick and Washington taking on Chicago versus James Robinson and Jacksonville taking on Indy. I would like to roll James Robinson in this one, knowing that he is their lead back there, but they don't give him the ball a super ton, which is sad. In that wide receiver one spot, we got DK Metcalf in Seattle going against Arizona versus Deebo Samuel and San Fran going against Atlanta. I think Deebo, because of his versatileness, he'll end up getting more points in that game. In the next battle, we got Adam Thielen in Minnesota taking on Miami versus Ty Freak taking on Minnesota. So they're taking on each other. In this case, I think Tyreek, he's just had more volume share. He's also the number one in that number one wide receiver in that offense. So he's been making them big plays happen. In the tight end spot, we got Travis Kelce and KC versus Buffalo, and Hayden Hurst and Cincinnati going against New Orleans. In the flex spot, we got Brandon Ayuk and San Fran going against Atlanta versus Jalen Waddle and Miami going against Minnesota. Oof. I think we have to go with Ayuk on this one, just given the quarterback situation in Miami. Defense. Let's see. Chargers going against Denver. Wow, 49ers got to go against San Fran. Interesting. Okay. And lastly, the kickers. We got Brett Maher in Dallas going against Philly. Greg Joseph in Minnesota going against Miami. I think Greg Joseph will have the better day. Okay, that concludes that one. Stretch. Okay. Next, we got CD's Nuts taking on the Deviants. There we go. Scroll down. Okay. So, in the QBs, we got Lamar in Baltimore taking on the Giants versus Geno in Seattle taking on Arizona. Gotta roll with Lamar on this one. Dude's been killing it. Giants, mediocre. I know, we've still lost to them, so we'll see. Running backs, we have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, KC going against Buffalo versus Joe Mixon, and Cincy going against New Orleans. I'm going to roll with Mixon on this one. New Orleans defense isn't quite as good. I think they're pretty banged up. In that next battle spot, we got Damian Harris versus James Conner. I'm pretty sure Damian Harris is going to be out, I thought, from what I read. James Conner, got injured too. Oh. So he has bruised ribs. Unfortunate. If he has bruised ribs, then I guess maybe we'll go Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I don't know, he might not have the best game against Buffalo. And then if we go, let's see. I think James Conner's got to win this one by default, right? Then in the battle of wide receivers, we got Cincinnati and Jamar Chase going against New Orleans versus Cooper Kupp, and the Rams going against Carolina. Oh, that's Kupp all day. Easy. Next wide receiver matchup, we got Marquise Brown in Arizona going against Seattle versus Evans and Tampa Bay going against Pittsburgh. In Seattle. Like Evans against Pitt. DeAndre Hopkins is still out. So I think a bigger stat line out of Mike Evans and Pitt, and the Bucks in Pittsburgh. Moving into the tight end spot, we got Darren Waller, who's actually not only is he questionable, but he's also on a bye week. So this goes straight to Tyler Conklin and the Jets, who are going against Green Bay. In the flex spot, we got Miles Sanders in Philly going against Dallas versus Ramondre Stevenson, and the Pats going against Cleveland. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. So for that one, I would probably pick Ramondre Stevenson, just because there's kind of like been like a war of attrition, so he's like the last man standing there. In the defenses, we got the Rams taking on Carolina, which is a good matchup, versus the Vikings, and the Vikings taking on Miami. I've got to roll with the Rams taking on Carolina on this one. In the battle of the kickers, we got Tyler Bass in Buffalo taking on KC versus Young Hoku, Atlanta. Yeah, just the Atlanta kicker. Going against San Francisco. I think Young Hoku might end up kicking more field goals than Tyler Bass. I think Tyler Bass was going to kick like extra points, but that's about it. All right. Oh. Okay. Yo, what's going on, Skate? All right, Champ Cheese. All right. Let's break it down. Doing swell, my guy. How about yourself? All right. Let's see. Kyler Murray in Arizona going against Seattle versus Josh Allen in Buffalo going against KC. Oof. Team lost to the Timberwolves. Hey, no worries, bro. Probably go Kyler on this one because Seattle's defense isn't as good. Y'all lost to the Nets. It was only preseason though. In the battle of the running backs, we had Dalvin Cook and Minnesota going against Miami versus Jonathan Taylor, who is questionable, going against Jacksonville. Assuming that that questionable designation goes away, I think Jonathan Taylor will have the better day. Moving into the running backs. What's your MLS team? The Chicago Fire / the New York Red Bulls. Let's see. We had Saquon, who is technically questionable, and the Giants going against Baltimore, versus Devin Singletary in Buffalo going against KC. Got to roll with Saquon, who's having a killer season. Moving into the wide receivers, we have Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, versus Miami, versus Amari Cooper and Cleveland going against New England. I'm going to roll with Justin Jefferson on this one. Miami just got scorched by the Jets, so it would make sense that the Minnesota team that's been pretty competent this year is able to make a run, make Miami pay a little bit here. In wide receiver matchup 2, we got Gabe Davis in Buffalo going against KC versus Tyler Lockett and Seattle going against Arizona. Ooh. Really seems like the Seattle offense this year is like DK gets hot, Tyler Lockett goes down. Tyler Lockett gets hot, DK goes down. Gabe Davis, he did score on the first play from Buffalo's first play of the game, but it is going against KC. I think we'll go Tyler Lockett on this one. Just has that, he's always had that big play potential. In the tight ends, we got Tyler Higbee and the Rams going against Carolina versus George Kittle and San Fran going against Atlanta. Oof. Kittle's had a super down year, if I remember correctly. Yeah, not averaging too much. Whereas Higbee's had quite the come up of a year, averaging just about over 10 points a game. So we'll have to roll, and even based on the matchup, we'll have to roll. I'd roll with Carolina on this one. As Kittle has to go against Atlanta, and Atlanta's actually doing pretty good considering the state of the game, state of where they are. Moving into the flex spot, we got David Montgomery in Chicago going against Washington on some Thursday Night Football versus J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore going against the Giants. Oof. The Commanders are probably worse than I would say the Giants. So we'll have to roll with David Montgomery on this one. In the battle of the defenses, we got the Packers going against the Jets, while the Buccaneers got Pittsburgh. Assuming everything goes to plan, I think the Packers will have a better stat line going against the Jets. And lastly, Brandon McManus in Denver going against the Chargers versus Matt Gay and the Rams, who are going against Carolina. I think McManus is once again going to be kicking a lot of field goals, especially for us, can't do anything. While Matt Gay is just going to be, I feel like, if that game is a blowout, he's just going to be kicking a lot of field goal, extra points, not really field goals. Okay, and in our final game of the week, we got Bob's Burgers taking on Team BTbruh. Let's see how this one shapes up. So, this starts off with Jalen Hurts and Philly going against Dallas, and Justin Herbert and the Chargers going against Denver. Gotta roll Jalen on this one. Man's is cooking this season so far. Moving into the running backs, we got Cam Akers and the Rams going against Carolina versus Najee Harris and Pitt going against Tampa. I like the matchup with the Rams versus Carolina, but the running back by committee that the Rams have is less than ideal for Cam Akers. So I'm gonna roll with Najee Harris on this one, but I don't expect him to get much because Tampa Bay's defense is actually very good, especially against the run. Moving into running back 2, we had Aaron Jones in Green Bay taking on the Jets versus Tyler Allgeier, who is filling in for Cordarrelle Patterson there in Atlanta, as they take on San Fran. Let's see. I probably have to go Jones on this one, obviously, because, I'm going against the Jets. But we'll see if he gets shut down or not. Moving into the wide receivers, we got Stephon Diggs in Buffalo going against KC versus Scary Terry in Washington going against Chicago. Stephon Diggs proving he can pretty much score against anyone. While Scary Terry is on the Commanders team that can potentially implode. So I have to go to Diggs on this one. Let's see. Then we moved into what is it? The second wide receivers. Because I didn't mention Scary Terry here. Even though it's the Commanders taking on Chicago, I just don't trust Carson, so I'll probably roll with Stephon to have the better stat line. In the battle of the wide receivers, we have Devontae, who's on bye, so this one's obviously got to go to Christian Kirk, who isn't on bye. In the battle of the tight ends, we got Freiermuth and Pitt going against Tampa versus Gesicki and Miami going against Minnesota. Ooh. Let's see what 114 1144. Oh, Freiermuth has been better. Alright, we'll have to roll Freiermuth, even though they are going against Tampa, so that defense is going to be difficult to pass against, but I think it'll be better than Gesicki, who's been, all of Miami's offense has been having a tough time right now. Moving into the flex spot, we got Allen Robinson and the Rams taking on Carolina versus Keenan Allen and the Chargers taking on Denver. Based on the matchup, I would love to say Robinson, but he just hasn't been having a great season. So we're gonna roll with Keenan Allen against Denver, assuming he's healthy. In the Denver match, we have Denver. We have the battle of the defenses. I'm reading? Why did I read Denver? We have the Bills taking on KC versus the Saints taking on Cincy. I think the Saints are gonna have a better day and rack up more points than the Bills were against KC. And lastly, we have Daniel Carlson in Vegas taking on Justin Tucker in Baltimore. That's the Giants, and this one's obviously going to go to Tucker because Carlson is on bye. Shocking, right? I think that concludes everything. Alright. Indeed. Well, as always, sports fans, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in to yet another exciting episode. Hope you enjoyed it. The content. We are going to shift some gears now. But once again, thank you.